All right, so I want to talk today about something. I want to talk about there is a group of people in the right that are not that I disagree with them. I do believe that they make very good points, but I just think that they focus too much on Zionism. And their question is, what's the difference between Zionism and white nationalism? Um, I don't. So here's the thing about Zionism and white nationalism. Zionism is the belief of a culture identity, you know, um, and pushing for a nationhood in Israel. The thing about Zionism, however, it's not limited to skin color. It's limited to heritage, not skin color. White nationalism, however, is connected to skin color, not heritage. It is a mixture of heritage and skin tone, skin color. Zionism, there's white Jews because they were mixed with a many European ancestry. There's Ethiopian Jews; those are the ones who are being allowed to come back to Israel. And there's also the ones who are they look very Semitic, Middle Eastern, the Jews. You know, the original ones, the ones who you can say that they were the first ones. White nationalism, however, is really about just the white nationhood, you know, and they believe that they should promote and keep the majority of the people of their country white. Um, Here's the thing: I do agree in some in part of their argument, not because of the white skin color, but I do believe it's very important for a country in order to remain, you know, and to not be and not drastically change the culture is that the people who are of the heritage of the founders of this country and many of these countries should remain in the majority, and they have every right to begin to accept other people who are not Jews, who are not white or stuff, or vice versa. Now, when it comes to Israel, Israel does accept immigration who are not Jews into their country. They do accept it, but very, very limited. It's very, very limited. And I guess what white countries are people who are white, you know, countries in white areas, they believe that, oh, these countries, there's too many of them, you know, there's too many people. And it kind of makes sense in a way. However, when it comes to America, it's very different. You see, America was always a diverse country. America began to get diversified because of certain factors. Before the 1960 Act and before the Ronald Reagan Immigration Act, America was a country that you had already a huge community of African Americans living in this country. You know, you had a human, and not only that, but many of these African Americans played a role in the creation of the Constitution. A lot of them did. Now, because of the vision, because of some people were for slaves and some people were for the freedom of slaves, they needed to agree to disagree. And they needed to agree to disagree because because they couldn't have a divided country. They were too young. It was a new country, so they needed to make sure that they were on the same page. Okay, so that's the reason why. But America is a country that that was. By that time, many of the African Americans had more. They were more influenced by white Protestant ideas, but nevertheless, they were part of the integration of America. And as America began to expand, they began to expand in territories where you have French people and Creoles people, and they began to expand in areas where they already had Native Americans living in there. They gave them the opportunity, the Native Americans, to assimilate to Americans. Some of them did and felt discriminated, but they had the same rights as in America. But most of them chose to remain loyal to their tribes, you know, and that's the reason why they were not counted as Americans. As they expand further, they absorb, Mexicans, because Mexicans had already lived in this area, and this is the difference between America and some other countries. Now, other European countries are different because they, like I said, it was a founder of different. Like Spain is a mixture of Moors, of of Andalusia, of the originals and the Visigoths. If you look at it, all nations just like that. But the thing about white, there is not really a white identity. Now, I could understand in that because, majority of that people in the country are technically white, then that's what we mean by white. But white is so different. You see, a white person, if you go to Europe, there's different type of whites. There is Slavs, there is, and a lot of them, because of the Germanic tribes, they had a huge influence on many European tribes. But even though, for example, Germanic tribes invaded Spain, they have a huge influence in Spain. Spain is really considered different than the Germanic, like the Germanic groups of you can say Spain has a connection more to Latin than Germanic. That's the reason. Though you can say the ones who have a high influence of Germanic influences: Germany, Austria, Britain, Ireland, and Scandinavia. In other countries, you have Slavs, and then you have the Balkan areas, and then you have the Italians. That are, you can say that they're a little bit more in the Latin area of France, of connection. The northern part of France, of course, is Normandy, so they did have the area of influence by Visigoths. I mean, by the Normans. But pretty much, I think it's a difference between Zionism and white nationalism. White nationalism, they really push for all whites, as in saying that all whites think the same, as in saying that there's only white culture. No, there isn't a white culture. There is different white cultures, just like Africans. They're not all the same. There's different type of African culture. There's different type of indigenous culture, and there's different type of Asian cultures. The Japanese and the Chinese are completely different. Japanese are not calling for an East Asian culture. They're asking, they're promoting a Japanese culture. As a matter of fact, Japanese are so homogenous that they don't even want Koreans or Chinese going into the country. White nationalists, however, they look at it like we're all white, we're all in this together. No, the same thing with the black Africans, the African movement here. Same thing. The African nationalism, black nationalism, as a black African Americans are completely different than the Africans. And the African Americans in the US have a high mix of Native American and European ancestry than the ones from Africa. Like, according, if black nationalists will use the same racial purity concept as white folks, Africans, they will not be considered black because they have a lot of mixture of European ancestry in them. So black Latinos have a huge different culture than the African Americans. What I'm trying to say is that the difference between Zionism and white nationalism, and Zionism is more about a heritage. It's more about a heritage than white people. White people is more about a purified a white, technically. But it doesn't make sense because the first white settlers, they actually did protect their heritage. It was like, we're British, we're Dutch, we are Italian, we're this. Now it's just like we're all the same because we share the same skin color, but our cultures are different. And I think that's the difference between Zionism and white nationalism. Zionism is really about the heritage, even if you're mixed. White nationalism is like, as long as we're all white, then we're all in this together. And I just wanted to bring the difference between the white nationalism and white Zionism. Again, Zionism does not prevent immigrants who are not Jewish to come into the country. It's just that they're very, very limited. And white nationalism, that's where pretty much what they're pushing for people of different of only their kind moving into a country. In one way, and you can say it in some way, they do have a point. For example, America was founded by British and Dutch and German. So you can say that, hey, this is a country that was founded by these principles. We're not saying that And I just want to say that these people that put white nationalism, I don't like to call them racist, because I do believe that's, some of them are, but some of them, it's not like they don't want people. Like, it's not like they're calling for people who are calling for deportation of people who are not white. They're just saying that you just want to keep a heritage, a majority heritage of their own kind. The problem with that is that they're inclusive to every white group. The reality is the Spanish are not, they shouldn't be considered the same. Italians shouldn't be considered the same. You know, Russians shouldn't be considered the same. Yes, they all share the same skin tone, because their argument is, well, at the beginning, they all originated from the Caucasus area. Okay, but if you want to use that same logic, that all white people came from the Caucasus area, then you have to go further back in time, and we can say that we all come from Noah. Because a lot of white nationalists believe in the biblical perspective, that we all come from Noah. And we all come from Adam. So if you want to go as far as, well, I mean, they're all the same. I mean, all Europeans are the same because we all come from the Caucasus area. Then why don't we just go back and say we all come from Noah? If you want to use that same argument. But if you want to talk about different cultures and linguistics and all that, you can't claim a Russian as the same. You can't claim America, a nation of this heritage, and have them some sort of similarities with the Russians other than the skin color. You can't. You can't. Or with an Italian. You know? So if you want to be consistent about promoting the heritage of this country, then you have to say, like, who were the founders in that time? The Dutch, the British, the German. If you want to do that, then I guess you have a point. But to say that all white people are just the same, it's just not true. Same thing with blacks. You can't say that all black people are the same. No, they're not. Okay? There's different. Go to Africa. There's different groups of different cultures. The East Africans are different from the West Africans. And it's in the central part of Africa. They're so different. So I just wanted to kind of break that, because if somehow they believe, they kind of say this argument, well, Jews can do it, but we can't. Well, if you want to, I mean, maybe if you come up with a better argument and specifically say which one do you want, and also you have to be truthful, because it's not that Israel denies every entry for every non-Jew. They actually do accept them. It's true. They accept them in very limited number. But why? Because Israel is not it's not a large population. They look at it as numbers. America is a population of 190 million white people, and you have about 40 million African Americans, which means that they were already part of the society. So they accept immigrants because technically this demographics is not going to change. Israel is a country that has about 8 million Jews. So they cannot accept unlimited amount of immigrants, because because compared to their small population, they will be taken over drastically in a few years. They're using their common sense. So they do accept they do accept immigrants who are non-Jewish, but they can't because of the population of their country, of the Jewish population in the country. If they accept way too many, then they will be taken over. Whereas countries like in Europe, they should probably use the example of Israel, but that's for another story, because they're just way too small population, and they're trying to accept large amounts of billions of people from a continent that has a large population than their 3 million or 4 million in their own countries. But that's another story. But I just wanted to kind of compare and contrast between the Zionism and the white nationalism. So, all right, hope you guys like what I said. I doubt it though. I'm pretty sure that those, both and the left and right will criticize me for this, but oh well, it is what it is. We're all entitled to our own opinion. But I hope you guys enjoy it, and you